Welcome back, life science learners. Let's continue with our revision lesson on human impact. We've been looking at some concepts. Let's get straight into more concepts and try and apply those concepts in the context of different questions. As I mentioned, the best way to do that in a revision lesson is to apply your understanding in relation to different questions. And I hope that you guys take some of this and apply that when you're looking at revising any concept in life sciences. So let's get and look at in the last segment what we're looking at. So guys, we've just discussed food security. We're going to spend some time looking at biodiversity and then apply our understanding to various different questions that test our basic concepts. So it's important that we again in this segment look at some keywords relevant to this part of the lesson where we're talking about biodiversity. We've mentioned how South Africa is a diverse country in terms of the diversity of plants, people and animals. And so that concept is an important concept for us to unpack and go and look at the different biomes, look at our hotspots, look at our endemic species. And those are important to understanding the complexities of biodiversity. It's important that we also recognize solid waste as a component to human impact and how that solid waste is contributing to the impact on the environment and mechanisms to manage disposal of solid waste. The concept of biodegradable refers to waste that can be degraded naturally. I mentioned the term indigenous species or plants that grow naturally in a specific area. The concept of non-biodegradable waste products, things that do not degrade, and hence our conscious approach to recycling these and disposing them off in a sustainable manner. What are hazardous waste? And so we talk about in a country where there's significant industrialization as well as mines and the impact that the hazardous waste products produced from these industries have on the environment, we must recognize those as well. The concept of what is an exotic species, alien invasive species and their impact on the environment needs to be considered. Poaching, which is relevant to South Africa in terms of knowing that poaching has affected many indigenous species and the demand for international trade of these poached either rhino horns or abalone, for example. Monoculture to sustain human needs, the impact that deforestation has, as well as I mentioned earlier on the disposal of hazardous waste. So as a recap, what is biodiversity? As I mentioned, it refers to the variety of plants and animal species on Earth. And we know that biodiversity ensures that we have food, fresh water, medicines, fuel that we can obtain from the environment. It is also ensures that the climate is regulated, floods are controlled through our wetlands, disease are kept in check, and that's through predators eating sick and decaying animals, as well as the water is being purified and filtered in our wetlands. So guys, it's important that we consider that the complexity of biodiversity being a key factor to maintaining life and sustaining life on Earth. Biodiversity ensures that seeds are dispersed, guys. We talk about those seeds being an important part of ensuring that there's more crop and more plants available. We also know that nutrients are recycled. So example, the nitrogen cycle and the carbon cycle, and how biodiversity, how the impact of biodiversity affects these cycles. The oxygen and soil are also affected by a loss or damage to the biodiversity. It also helps to improve the quality of life by providing us with forms of recreation and ecotourism. And we look at human impact on the environment and how that affects our local tourism industry. We also know that we admire and we appreciate the nature that we have. And so if we remove that, you find that that also affects the quality of life of individuals. So guys, a few more concepts around soil generation and soil quality. We talk about the quality of air, the water quality. An important concept in our environment is controlling pest and invasive plant species. The concept around pollination and crop production, and how if we remove or if we affect our diversity of life forms, we in turn can affect how plants are pollinated and in turn decrease our crop production. Prevention and natural disasters. So we talk about natural disasters such as tsunamis, droughts, heavy rainfalls. And so those are natural disasters which often are an impact that often happen, as an impact of humans on the environment. Climate stabilization and the provision of food security are important concepts. We also will have an overview of farming methods, the concept around monoculture, overgrazing, and the impact that golf estates have on biodiversity. Mining is a significant industry that has provided lots of revenue to a country such as South Africa. However, we got to look at sustainable mining and the impact that mining has had on the environment. We talk about urbanization and how that affects biodiversity, deforestation and how that has affected the quality of land and has led to landslides. It's led to arid, uninhabitable land. We talk about the loss of wetlands and grasslands, and wetlands are an important a part of an environment that helps to purify water. Poaching, we discussed that, and alien plant invasion. So what is waste? Waste is also known as rubbish, trash, refuse, garbage, junk, litter, and so forth. And it is unwanted or useless material that is often discarded, thrown away, or irresponsibly dumped. And so that again contributes to what we refer to as landfills. It often impacts on the quality of our environment. So in biology, waste is any of the many unwanted substances or toxins that are expelled from living organisms, from metabolic waste such as urea and sweat. So we do know that as metabolic processes, we do produce lots of waste. Let's look at different types of waste and how these are categorized. So we have organic waste, and organic waste again points to waste that can degrade or it's degradable. We also have hazardous waste, and again hazardous waste will point to waste that is produced that can affect the quality of the environment as well as other living forms in the environment. We have solid waste, which is waste that is probably non-biodegradable. So we talk about glass, we talk about things that cannot be broken down any further. So that's solid waste. We also have liquid waste. So we talk about from mines, when we talk about acid drain-offs, or in industries that produce lots of waste products that flow into rivers, that's again liquid waste. And then we talk about recyclable waste, and these are waste products that, like paper, that can be recycled, plastic that can be recycled. So recyclable waste would be paper, plastic, things that can be regenerated and repurposed for different uses. Okay, as I mentioned, we'll very quickly overview the different types of waste. Solid waste, as I mentioned, these are solid forms of domestic, commercial and industrial waste. Examples of these solid waste include plastic, styrofoam, which is your polystyrene containers, your bottles, plus plastic and glass, cans, your aluminum cans, paper, scrap iron and other trash form part of your solid waste. Your liquid waste would include liquid from, example, your domestic waste, so when you obviously washing your dishes, chemicals from industries that use chemicals that are now effluents, oil spills as well as oils from certain industries where there's a lot of mechanization, wastewater from ponds, manufacturing industries and other sources contribute significant amounts of liquid waste into the environment. Gaseous waste would be waste products in the form of gases. Examples of these would be the waste that is produced from our fossil fuel industries. So we talk about methane, carbon dioxide, and sulfur dioxide, and these are significantly affecting our greenhouse gases. We also know that we can classify waste according to the origin and type. So we have municipal solid waste, we have biomedical solid waste. So currently we're looking at all the waste products that are produced in hospitals and facilities where there is human tissues or samplings and testing done. So those are biomedical waste products. Often the concern around infection and pathogens and germs are in those. Industrial waste, again, would be waste produced by industries. Agricultural waste, again, waste produced from farming, as well as your fishery waste, so waste produced from the fishing industry, where there's lots of disposal of remnants of fish that are processed. So if you talk of your canning industry, what happens to the internal organs and the extra fins and how that is disposed of. Radioactive waste, and we talk about nuclear power stations and how they produce radioactive waste and how that is disposed of correctly. And then your electronic waste, guys. So this is, again, a concern, a growing concern in around the world, especially with the development of technology and electronic devices. What happens to your old laptops? What happens to your old cell phones, your desktops? How are those disposed of? And so we find that that's your growing concern in the future. Right. So we can also classify waste according to their properties. And as I mentioned earlier on, we can broadly classify them into two groups, your biodegradable and your non-biodegradable waste. And so when we talk about biodegradable, again, these can be degraded or broken down. Example of this would be your paper, wood, fruit peels, and others. So things that will naturally decompose in the environment are biodegradable. However, we have the other category in which cannot be degraded naturally. So this would be plastic bottles and cans, old machines, styrofoam containers, and other substances that cannot naturally break down in the environment. Okay, so guys, it's important that we do recognize that waste have a significant impact on the environment. We need to take a conscious decision as to how we reduce the waste production, firstly, and second, how we dispose of the waste. So being able to separate our waste into recyclable and non-recyclable is important. We also must remember the golden rule of reduce, reuse, and recycle. And that often helps in reducing the amount of waste products that are produced. Right. So guys, we're going to get on to one question before we wrap this segment up. So this question is adapted from a paper in March. It shows a table with different types of waste and their decomposition times. So we've got different types of waste that have been indicated down this column, and we've got the decomposition times of these waste. It's important that you recognize how long it takes for some of these waste products to decompose or degrade. And so that's a concern. An example would be glass takes about 1 million years to decompose. And if we compare that to orange peels, that takes 6 months. So that, again, that's important information when we refer to biodegradable and non-degradable waste products. Okay, so let's look at the first question based on this set of data. Explain the term recycling. And guys, we've often used the term recycling. It's a simple question. So recycling is a process of converting waste materials into reusable objects to prevent waste of potentially useful materials. So when we take certain substances and we repurpose them, that's recycling them. We also reduce the consumption of fresh raw materials. So instead of us using fresh raw materials, we can recycle some of our other waste products and repurpose them. We talk about energy usage. We talk about air pollution from incineration and water pollution from landfills by decreasing the need for conventional waste disposal. So there are many ways in which recycling can happen. It's not simply just taking paper and repurposing it. Even in industries, the fact that, bottles are recycled and repurposed, rubber is recycled and repurposed. That's all part of initiatives to reduce, one, the waste disposable stuff, as well as to increase the use of raw materials by repurposing them. Right. Name one type of waste in the table above that can be recycled. So guys, when we look at the waste in the table above, we got to know that recycling essentially means reusing them. So if we were to quickly wrap this up, we can see that paper can be recycled, aluminum cans can be recycled, as well as your tin cans can be recycled. So guys, we've looked at human impact on the environment, we've looked at various different components and the core concepts. We kind of wrapped up this segment by looking at how to recycle and reduce the waste that we produce. It's important that as you revise this entire section that you look at the 4 different concepts that we looked at. We looked at human impact on the environment in terms of the atmosphere. We looked at, finally in the last segment, we've looked at waste products. We've also spoke about the human population impacting on the food crisis that we have. And those are the important concepts that we need to look at. I trust that you've enjoyed the lesson and that you can go back and reflect on what we've done. Thank you for being an amazing audience. Take care, go well, and have a baie lekker day. Cheers.